today we're going to make an animal on a box, and the animal that I chose is a little barn owl, and he actually will hang on the wall as well, or he can just be a little piece of sculpture that you sit on a side table or your kitchen table. So I like to build animals on boxes because it gives us a good surface to start with, because most animals have really tiny feet and legs or skinnier feet and legs that make it a little bit hard to have them stand up properly. So using a base like a box or a circle, not a circle, a ball, allows us to just rest the animal on the box or ball, and also it gives us something to hang with. So that's going to go there as we get started. So what I've done to start is we're going to make the box, and I've rolled out a slab of clay, and I just used these little cutters that I bought at the clay store. I know you can get them on Amazon. They come in a set of 5. This is the largest one. It's got a sharp edge on one end and a rounded edge on the other. So you always want to use the sharp end against the clay, and you're just going to punch out your squares like that, okay? And mine are about 1/8 of an inch thick. You can see that, okay? And we're just going to put this on to the side because I want to make this video relatively short so that y'all have more time to work. So now that I've got 6 pieces cut out to make my box, I'm going to take this little wire tool. Now this is a tool that somebody gave me. I don't know what they're called. I guess I should have looked that up. But I know that if you just maybe punch in Amazon or Clay King a bevel edger for clay, because that's what we're getting ready to do. So we're going to take our little edger here, and we're just going to put the wire against the clay, and we're just going to pull this down the clay like that, and it makes a nice, let's see, beveled edge. See how it did that? Okay, and we're going to do that all the way around on all 4 sides. So we're just going to bevel and bevel, and I missed this one. Okay, and we're going to do that for all 6 of them. And this gives us an easier way to put the box together and make the edges square up next to each other really tightly and snugly. You can just put that extra clay to the side. Okay, and then we're just going to put the box together. So we're going to take our little scoring tool. Now this is, for those of you who have not seen me say this over and over again, I make these tools out of toothpicks, and you just wrap waxed dental floss around both ends and then glue gun them together, okay? Makes a really nice tool. It's very inexpensive, and it won't take you very long to make. And I like them even better than the metal ones. Okay, so we're just gonna score all the way around all 4 sides. And then we're going to use, I don't really need a lot of slip. If you can see how flimsy this is, this clay is pretty wet. It's stiff enough that it's going to hold up for me, but it's not so stiff that it doesn't have a little stickiness left to it. So generally I wouldn't use slip, but just in case you have clay that's a little stiffer than mine, here's my water slip. It's got a bunch of clay down in the bottom, and it just makes it a little bit gooier than just regular water. And I'm just going to put a tiny bit, see, just a tiny bit, all the way around. Okay. Now when I make a box, generally I like to make sure the sides stay together by using a little coil of clay against every seam, okay? So I forgot to do one of these. So I'm going to do this really quick. So we're going to roll out a coil and put it against every seam and smooth it. So I have a little bag of extra clay here. And let me go ahead and score this one and use a little bit of water, tiny, tiny bit of water here. All right, now pick one for your base. Just tap it down so it's nice and flat. We're gonna take two and make a corner here. Okay, like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead, while I can still get my fingers in this box, I'm going to go ahead and roll a little coil of clay out like that. And we're just going to stick that in the seam. So it ends up looking like that. And then I'm going to stick one against this seam. And where'd my extra clay go? There we go. And against this seam. Okay? And the inside of this box is not going to be seen. I mean, you can look through the hanging keyhole where we're going to hang. You can look through there, but you really can't see anything. So I'm not going to do too much fussing and making this look pretty, okay? That's all I'm going to do. Now, I'm going to add an extra wall here, right? And again, we're going to put a coil on every seam. Stick one right there and right here. Perfect. And then we're just going to push our finger down, not really worrying about how it looks because we're really just not going to see that area. Now if you notice, these seams seem to be splitting right here as I'm pushing against them. Don't worry about that for right now. We're going to fix that. Okay, so we're going to add this extra wall, and this is where it gets tough to get your fingers in here, but I'm still going to attempt to get down there and get my fingers in there. So we'll just go like that. And I'm kind of doing it blindly. I don't really look, can't really see that much in there. On the bottom. On the sides it's a little easier, so we're just going to stick one there. Oops. Okay. Now we're going to add the top. And this one you can't put a seam around, and well, you can't put a coil in the seams, which I just make extra sure that I get this piece nice and tight in the box. Okay. All right, so now we've got all of our sides, right? But if you look around the box, it looks like the seams are going to pop out, especially even that one. See how that's popping out like that? So I'm just going to start gently pounding the box down, okay? And very gently. And then we're going to go over, 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 and over. And I'm going to do that one more time, all the way around. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure that my seams are tight, and they will be just fine, but they don't look good. They look still really messy. So I'm going to just gently take my finger and start rubbing those seams together, okay? And you know, you got to go on each side and take a look at each seam. It's easy to forget one, and then you get around to the end and you can't fix it as well as you could at this moment. So make sure you go on each side, take a really big gander at what you got going on. Okay. And I think I've gotten everybody. So I'm going to go back around, just checking. Now, I would prefer that this clay be a little stiffer than it is. Because if you can look, can you see that right there? See, that's an indention, right? I don't like that. And it happened because the clay is still really wet. Okay, these I can get rid of, but this indentation is rather big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the worst side, the side that I like the least, and that's going to be the bottom. And so I think that's the side with the little indentation right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool. I love this little tool. It looks like a knife on one side, and it just has a a little bit of a curve on the other side, and I'm going to poke. Where is it? Let's see. I've got to find my worst side. There it is. I'm going to poke a hole in that side because that's going to be the bottom, and then I'm going to blow into it. And that's going to kind of get rid of some of those. So you just stick your mouth around this little hole and you just blow into the cube, and it'll puff up a little bit. Okay, and it takes out some of those indentions. Okay, so I'm going to set this one aside because it's too wet to work with. So if you're working with clay that's as loose as mine, then you want to set it aside and just let it stiffen up for just a little bit. I'm going to set that aside. And I have a magical box in here. Okay, so that I made a couple days ago. Okay, so this one I didn't need to blow, so it doesn't have a hole in it. So I'm going to find the side that I like the least. And I'm just kind of doing a little cleanup while I'm looking at those. And that's going to be the bottom. Okay, I think this one is going to be the bottom, okay? So I like, on this little guy, he sits straight on the table, okay? But I made a second one just to kind of see what parts I needed before I was going to teach this class. And I put some feet on him because I like him to sit up off the table a little bit. So you see? But he's still going to be able to hang, right? But he sits off the table, and it just gives him a little height. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you how to put those feet on today because I just think it looks really nice. So I'm going to score in all four corners, right? And this clay is tons drier than this clay on this box over here, the one I just made. So I'm going to really use some water here. So I'm going to stir up my little slip water and just put some water there. Okay. Now, when clay is this wet for me, generally I'll put the water in there and then I'm going to just score that water in. Okay. And it just gives it a little extra stickiness. Okay. Perfect. Now you're going to take your clay and you are going to grab just a piece like that. And I'm just going to gently pull off the same amount of clay for each foot. Okay? And then you're just going to roll them into a ball. Okay, so you roll it into a ball, right? And then you're just going to take this part and this part of your palms and you're just going to roll that like that. See? And so then you get this nice little cone shape. Okay? And then you're just going to hit it down on the ground, on the surface of your bat. Okay? And just set it aside. And then we're going to do the other one. So roll into a ball and then make a cone shape. Okay? Just set those aside. They don't have to be perfect. They definitely can be a little bit wonky because you're going to be able to straighten all that stuff out when we get them on, okay? Okay, now last one. Okay, so I'm just going to take these and do a little bit of scoring and pop them right on. Now, what I do after this is I just really start to press them down, okay? I do like the look of them just sitting like on the box and not really rubbed in, but you can do that if you would like. I like to see the feet and how they were put on, but if you want to just go ahead and really smooth them in, you can. And just so you can see that being done, I'll go ahead and do that for you. You can use your finger and just start to smooth these into the box, or you can take your little tool, a little rib, and you can use that too. And because you scored and slipped so well, you know, it should be fine. They should really smooth right in. And these seem to be doing that. So I'm just going to smooth them in. And then I'm going to smooth out here. And again, you'll notice how rough this is. when we get done with our owl, I'm going to go in with my tools and really clean this up. But for the time's sake today, I'm just not going to do that. I usually do it at the end anyway. Okay, so now that these feet are really wet, right? Okay, so I'm not going to turn this box upside down and use the feet quite yet because we'll just smash them in. So I'm going to move this aside and I'm going to bring out one that I made 2 days ago. Okay, so it has a little hole in the bottom where I did have to blow this cube up because it had some sides that were not that great. Now this is a great time because this is really set up now. This is a great time to take away some of these little places that you don't like so much, okay? And then I'm just gonna get rid of some of that clay, and then we're just gonna stand him right up. And this is the time where you wanna make sure that this is not wobbling, okay? Because he's gonna be a sculpture. He can hang on the wall, but if you want him on the table and he wobbles, it's gonna drive you crazy. So this is a good time just to take your fingers and just move it back and forth. Make sure that he's not wobbling on any side. Okay, now we need to cut the hole for him to hang. And of course, I do not have that tool with me. I have it right here. So you can take a tool like this that has a nice blade, or you can use an X-Acto knife. But I recommend something relatively sharp because this is almost leather hard and it's gonna be hard to get through without something sharp. Okay, and then if you just if you don't have a wheel and you just turn it around, look for the side that you like the least because you know that that's gonna be the one that's against the wall when he's hanging. Okay, let's see, it's this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my keyhole here. Now, another thing to think about, I'm going to stop that for a second. Another thing to think about is this guy. Okay, this cube, right, it does not have a hole in it. So inside of this cube is a lot of air that's going to try to get out. It's going to start to expand as the clay shrinks. The air's not really expanding, but the clay is shrinking. So the air is getting pressed in and it's going to push your walls out. So what you're going to want to do is if you have a box like that that's starting to dry, you can just poke a hole in the bottom, or you can go ahead and cut your keyhole, which is going to be your hanger. So I'm probably going to cut the hanger in this one as soon as we are done. So just something to think about. Okay, so then you just go around. So this keyhole is meant for a large-headed nail or screw. And what's going to happen is you're going to stick the large head in here, and then the neck of the screw will hold here, okay? And so I'm just going to smooth this out because when you put it on the hanger, on the screw, you want it to go smoothly. You don't want little pieces of clay grabbing at the metal and making a screeching noise that will make your hair stand up on the back of your neck. So just smooth all that out, okay? And that's our hanger. So now we're going to put this back down and we are going to think about our owl. So here's our owl. And if you look at him, this is basically an oval shape, this body. And then his head is round. Okay, so we're going to basically be making an oval body, a round head, and then an oval wing, and an oval wing, and two triangular shaped feet, right? Oh, sorry about that. That was my phone. And then a triangle shape for the tail. So if you think about things in shapes, it makes you feel a lot more secure about what you're making. Because everybody can make an oval in clay, and everybody can make a circle. I mean, not a circle, I keep saying that. A ball. And then triangle, 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 oval, oval. So this is going to be pretty easy. Okay. So I'm going to score a round shape on the top of the box. And then I'm going to slip it really good because this is relatively stiff, okay? There. And I'm going to go back. And again, nice little score and slip here. And then we're just going to start to build. And I build with coils. So that's how I'm going to approach this. Now, there are times when I make small pieces where I start with a pinch pot. And if you like that better, you can do a pinch pot and you can just make 2 pots, one on top of the other for the oval. But I find that coils are easier, and so that's what we're going to go with today. And then I'll check with Liz, and if somebody wants me to show the pinch pot method of making animals, you can just email her and she'll let me know, and I'll just make another video. Okay, so here's my coil, and I'm just going to start building up like that. And this is a good time to take your either your rib tool. I'm going to use my favorite tool. It's called a dental spatula. And if you haven't been in my class, these you can get on eBay for like $1.15 a piece. And it's just a long, thin metal piece. And I use it for absolutely everything that has to do with hand building. So I'm just going to use the end of this, and I'm just going to start attaching this. Again, knowing that nobody's going to see this inside, so I'm just not going to make it look that good. There's no need. And then I'm just going to take my tool, and I'm just going to start to pull that clay down onto the box. Like that. Okay, and now it's attached. And it's attached really securely. And then you can just start to kind of work with the shape just a little bit. And I'm just going to keep going up. So the owl, he's going to come out a little bit. Well, this is the front. So his little belly's going to come out a little bit. They're really puffy little fellas. So I'm just going to come out just a little bit. So when I think about moving in and out with coils, so you put the coil on the inside of this circle if you want to go in. And then we're working on the outside because we're coming out, okay? And I put on about 3 coils before I start to smooth with my my dental spatula. So here we go. We're on the outside. And now we've come out enough, so I'm going to go directly on top of the coil. Directly on top. And that means that you're going to go straight up. You won't go out or in at all, as long as you're right on top. Okay, now I'm going to shape him a little bit, and this is a secret that I do all the time. I keep little tiny balls of clay next to my working station, and whenever I make an animal or a sculpture that's enclosed, and this little guy's going to be enclosed, right? I put these little balls of clay inside because they make it rattle, and I love to make things rattle. Now, that's another thing we need to think about, is that this is going to be an enclosed space. This whole thing here, this whole owl is enclosed. So that means it's going to be a huge pocket of air in this owl. So we need to stick a hole in here for the air to escape, and it's going to escape out the keyhole. Okay? Okay, so we can go ahead and stick these little pieces of clay in there, and that's going to make a rattle. Now these balls of clay right here that I put in there have been sitting in my studio for days, so they're completely bone dry. If you put wet clay balls in here, they may rattle and they may stick to the inside of your pot, and then it will not rattle ever. So try to make some of these balls if you plan to make a rattle, and just let them dry out for a couple days. The best sounding rattle is when you make your little balls of clay out of porcelain. I do not have any porcelain right now, but I did buy some, and I just haven't picked it up yet. But I bought it for multiple reasons, but I'm going to make some little rattle balls immediately when I get the clay here, so that I have the porcelain balls, because they do make a very nice noise. Okay. And again, we're just going to keep going up. And so I'm going right on top. Now I'm working really wet. Okay, so it's just clay that came directly out of the bag. And so I don't need to score and slip. If you're worried, you can go ahead and do that. It's fine. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start to smooth this down again. So I'm just using my fingers on the inside and smoothing down all the way around. And so I think now that we're getting pretty tall here, I'm going to change the camera so that you can see it from the side. Okay, I changed the camera angle so that you can see this coming up. Now see how it's making kind of an oval shape? And if you look inside, you can see how squished these coils are. You almost can't see them anymore because they're so squished together. And that can kind of tell you how wet my clay is when you put your coils together. If they squish together really well, and you can barely see them as coils, then you know that they're gonna stay together. Okay, so right now I'm just tapping my finger and pinching just a little bit, just to make the shape a little bit more oval for me. And also I'm kind of pushing out his breast just a little bit. They are, like I said, pretty puffy birds, beautiful feathers. Okay, so I just like that shape a little bit better now. This is a really good time for us to make a tail because this clay is pretty dry, and I can also stick my fingers in here. So I like to make the tail now. So since this is the back, you have to decide which side you want the tail on. So this side or this side. You can see his tail and his tail. Okay, you don't want to put the tail on the back because you'll cover up your keyhole. And also, well, that's the best reason. I don't need to elaborate after that. So since he has his tail on this side, over here, I'm going to put the tail on this side. So if they're hanging on the wall together, they'll be opposites. Okay, so I'm going to get my little scoring tool here, and I'm just going to score really good because this clay is getting rather stiff. Now I'm going to score the shape of the tail, right? Which is going to be a triangle. Remember, we're going to start thinking about shapes so that we don't get intimidated by making the owl because he's just a group of shapes. And again, I'm going to get my slip, and we're going to do really good. We're going to get that nice and wet, okay? And then again, score over the water. You can go up a little bit on his body, just like that. Now I'm just going to grab some clay and just start to roll. Okay, so I'm starting my triangle. So I'm just going to squish this down. I'm doing it where I did before, just on this part and this part of my hands, and that tends to make it come together down at the bottom so that you get your point. Now this is a lot of clay for that tail. I don't need that much clay. So I am going to cut the top off like that. Just put that back aside. I'm going to try to move this back a little bit. There we go. Now, so now I have a smaller, and see how thick that clay is? I'm going to cut a good amount of that off, and I'm actually going to use my dental spatula. If your dental spatula gets dirty, as it often does, you can just clean it on the side of your bat. I'm gonna move this little owl over because so I'm gonna cut some of this out like that. Okay, and that's still pretty thick, so I'm gonna do one more cut all the way down. And this clay's pretty sticky, so it's not gonna want to come off, but you just pull it off. There, that's a lot better, a lot more manageable. So I'm gonna start to shape it. Now this is just a triangle, see, it's nothing special, right? Okay. So it's going to fit right here. Well, that's really big for that space. So I'm just going to start to trim it down. go. There we go. Let's see. That kind of fits. I think I could trim it just a little bit more. Now what you don't want is a lot of weight. You know, you don't want to waste your clay, number one. But also you don't want your pieces to weigh a ton, especially if you're trying to hang them on a wall. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and those of you who've been in my class know that I attach things a lot of times with a flange. So I'm going to make that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a line here like that. And I'm going to open this up like that. And then like that. So here's your flange. Now this clay is so wet. I mean, it's just wet. I don't really need to score, but I'm going to do it just because I'm just being a little extra cautious. And I'm going to stick this little guy right on there. Like that. Well, not like that. Like that. Okay? Now, you could make his tail stick out like that. And it would be cute. But I want mine to sit down. So I'm going to push this down. And you can see my flange right there. And I'm just going to start to push the flange up the back of the bird. Now, you can, right now, this is why we are doing the tail right now, is because I can still put my hands in there. And that will help me really smooth this tail onto the back of the bird without punching a hole in the bird or distorting the shape. Okay, because I can always readjust the shape once I get the tail on. Okay, now I'm going to start to push this tail down. Now, we have a tail, and it's just a shape. So that was really easy and not very intimidating at all. So now I'm going to smooth this onto the box like that. And I'm going to do the other side. And I don't want my tail to look so much like a triangle. So I'm just going to smooth that little edge right there so it looks a little bit more rounded. Because what I would like for you to do before you even get started is to look up on Google Images a barn owl. So you can see the shape of their bodies and what they look like. You may interpret them into different shapes than I do. And that might be interesting. Okay, so that's pretty well taken care of. What's not taken care of are these little sides here. So I'm going to take my tool and just do that. Okay. And then on the other side. Now, that looks pretty good, right? But if you notice, right here, there's a little indentation right here. And if you notice on these birds, there's not. Because their back is really straight, generally, and it flows straight down into their tail, right? So we're going to fix that. So we're going to take a piece of clay and roll it out into a coil, just a short one. And then we're going to flatten it. And then we're just going to stick it right on here, like this, right? Because it's wet on wet clay, I'm not going to worry about scoring. And then I'm just going to start to pull this up to meet the back of the bird. And then I'm going to pull this down to meet the tail. And then you filled in your little indentation. And I'm going to take this tool and just smooth this out, okay? And again, I know that there's a lot of messiness right now, but we're going to fix it. I'm just going to wait until the end. Now this is another secret to hand building. And it's hard for me to explain, so I'm going to try to explain it. So, if you're worried about attaching things, right? And you're worried that you're creating air when you attach this piece to the box or this piece to the back of the bird, that can happen. And then, like, say this tail would blow off in the kiln because there's a little pocket of air somewhere in here, right? So I had a student that kept doing that. She kept making air when she attached pieces and she would just blow up. She'd blow off arms and legs and all kinds of stuff. And so I told her to do this neat little trick. So if you'll poke a bunch of holes in your tail all the way through, right? So we're going to cover them up after we poke them, but then they're still going to be in there. So if they need to escape, they'll escape through this part of the wall, which will come out this keyhole. Just think about it. It's hard to explain, but once you think about it, you'll understand. So you have to go all the way through. Like I feel this go all the way through, okay? And then I'm going to go all the way through, all the way through. And what we're hoping is that if there's an air pocket somewhere in this space, we are putting a hole in it, and it will escape through a hole inside the box, because I can feel these holes in here. Okay. So I've done that. So now I'm going to take my tool and I'm just going to cover these back up. Just the surface that goes over these holes. And so if there's any explosions, it'll come out the other side. Inside of the box. And well, not explosions. If there's any air, it'll come out on the inside of the box, and then it'll escape through this hole. Okay, I think I've explained it enough. Okay, now while we can stick our hands in there, and again, I know this is messy, but I'm going to fix it at the end. We're going to make the feet. And again, we talked about the feet being 2 triangles, right? So I'm going to go ahead and score for our little triangles. And we're going to take our slip or water. You know, if you have leftover clay that's at the bottom of your throwing bucket and it's all that mushy wet clay, you can put that aside in like a little plastic container or a cup and use that as actual slip. And that's the stickiest stuff you're going to get. So if you want to do that, you can. I just didn't think about getting any today. So I'm going to roll out a coil, kind of another short stubby one like that, and I'm just going to break it apart. Okay, these are my feet. Okay, so I'm just going to start rolling it so it's a nice triangle shape, right? And that looks pretty good. They have huge feet, so I am going to cut just a little bit off the top there like that. So that's my foot. I'm going to do that with this one. Roll it and then just shape it. Like that. Okay. And I'm going to cut a little bit off of this too. And then I'm just going to stick this straight on there with my finger inside as support. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to push it down. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this one up while the other one's not on, because it just gives me more space to get my tool in here without putting the other one on. So I'm just pulling the clay up the front of the bird. And then I'm just going to pull the clay sideways on the box like this. Okay, so there's your foot. Just smooth that over. And I'm going to make it so that the foot doesn't attach visually to the front of the bird, because when you look at their feet, you'll see in your image that they come, you can tell they come out from underneath the bird. So there's one foot. And I'm just going to go ahead and put his little talons in. I'm using my little knife-shaped rib. There. Okay? And now we put the other one on. Squish it in there. And push it down. And then we're going to move the clay up the bird. And it gets a little tricky on this side with this tool. So I'm going to get the pointed end of this rib and just push that in right there. And I'm going to make it so that it doesn't look like the feet are attached to the front of the bird. And pull this way. And then we're going to pull the clay like that. Now, it's tricky to get in between the feet, but you can do it. And then we're just going to make the talons. A lot of times you need to clean your rib off before you make a talon, because you want it to be precise. And there's your feet. And now we can continue to go up the bird. Okay, so he's getting pretty tall here. Let's see. Let's look at him from that view. He's getting pretty tall. we'll squish him back out because he's getting a little misshapen. There, now. Oop, I just made another misshapen. There we go. And I'm just going to start thinking about going in. So when you want to go in, you put your clay on the inside of your piece. And we haven't been messing with this recently. It's been sitting for a minute. So I'm going to go ahead just for safety's sake and score. And just a tiny bit of water. So I'm going to just use my finger. There. And we're just going to put this coil on. And I'm going on the inside. See? See how it's going in there? Like that. There. So see how you're going in now? And then I'm going to take my tool and just pull the clay down. And I'm using my finger on the inside for support. There. Okay, now, this is the time where we can still put our hands inside the bird. We're going to make the wings. So I'm going to get 2 equal sized pieces of clay. One's a little bigger than the other, so I'm going to just a little bit more clay. And you can feel that by putting each ball in one hand. You can feel if one's bigger than the other. Okay, now, roll into a ball. Roll out. There's your stumpy coil. You're going to use this part of your palm to make it go in a little bit, like that. And then we're just going to flatten it. Right? It's a wing. So this is too big, obviously, for the body of this bird, right? So we're just going to cut it down. But I want it to be relatively thin because, again, we don't want to add a bunch of extra weight to the bird. And also, the thicker the piece is, the more you have to worry about air pockets. So we're going to just go ahead and trim this little fella down. Here we go. And then we've got a smaller wing, which I think fits perfectly on the bird. See? Okay. So we're just going to score him a little bit. I'm just going to kind of smooth out this cut edge all the way around. I'm just pinching. And then it's smoother. And you can pick your side, which side's smoother. I like this side better. So I'm going to score. I don't need any water because it's so sticky. I'm just going to push this up to the bird. Now, this is the part where you really have to think, because here's your keyhole, right? But if you look at the bird, right, the wing needs to be behind this box, because if it sticks out, this keyhole is not going to be flush against the wall, which you need it to be. So I'm going to pull this off. Oop, it's not going to let me. Okay, so I'm going to readjust this bird so that this is flat against the wall. And if you need to, you can just do this. You can kind of stick your bat up against. See? See how that wing is going to touch? You just pop it. Just pop it back like that. And now, there's a little space in there. So you're not going to have any problem with that wing being too close to the wall. Okay. So we just popped that little wing, and it's definitely behind this box, this side of the box. Okay. Now, we're going to want to, now that we've popped it, it probably is really stuck on there, but we're just going to make sure. So we are going to just smooth the clay from the wing onto the bird, like so. There. Now, and then their wings, they have different parts of the wing. There's the upper part here, and then they have the longer feathers down here. So I just generally make a couple cuts in here just to show that. So let's see if I can make it so you can see it. Like that. And then these are the longer feathers. So you would just make a cut and a cut like that. So that's it. Now, it's really wet, so I'm not going to try to do this yet, but then I will smooth it out and these lines will get nice and clean. But I will do that in a little bit because it's really wet. Okay, now let's go back to the other wing. So I rolled out my ball and then I squished the end, and now I'm flattening the wing. And again, you're going to get a bigger wing than what you need. So we're just going to cut. If you want both of your wings to be the same size, you can cut them at the same time so that they end up being exactly the same. I don't need that for me because I like things to be kind of off center, but you can go back and kind of just also place it on top just to see. And then we're going to score again and just push this on here. This time we don't have to worry about this because we don't have a keyhole here. So it can be out as much as it wants to be. And we don't need to measure or pop it back in. And I'm just going to smooth the clay from the wing onto the bird. Now, I didn't do this with the other wing because my piece was pretty thin and I didn't feel like it needed it. But if you want to go ahead and punch holes in your wings, if you're worried about air pockets, you can do that here as well. Just like we did with the tail. Okay, there it is. There. Now, again, I'm just going to cut really quick. And I'm going to clean these up later. Okay. Like that. And that's our wing. Now, we are going to do the head and then we'll be done. So again, we're going to start to go in. And just going to roll out a coil. And we're going to go stick it on the inside of the bird as we go around. And I think that's as tight in as we need to be for his neck. And so I'm just going to smooth the clay down. Being careful not to smooth over the wing. And come up if you need to. And there we are. So now we have to think about the head, which is a circle or a ball. And again, if you wanted to pinch this, you could. But I'm just going to go ahead and continue because I want to show you how to come back out now that we've gone in. So we're going to put the clay on the outside here. See? So that, when you put it on the outside, we're going to go out. So we're just going to come out just a little bit and then come right back in. Since this is the foundation for the head, I'm going to go ahead and smooth here. All the way around. Being careful over the wings. There. And then I'm just going to quickly go up, because this video is getting long and I know you have things to do. making owls. So I'm going to go on the outside here just a little bit more like that. And I think that might be too far out. So I'm going to pull that coil right back off and try again. I think I'm just going to go straight up now instead of going out anymore because I think he's out enough. So I'm just going to put this on the top here. And so I'm going to go straight up. All the way around, straight up. And I'm going to continue to go straight up. Okay, I think now we can smooth this in, and then we're going to go in. Sometimes I'll scrape up, sometimes I scrape down. It just depends on the piece, and you'll get the feel for how you want to smooth. And now I'm going to adjust this shape. So I'm just really working on this shape where the head of the bird touches the shoulders. And just kind of cleaning that up just a little bit because this will be the last time I'll be able to do that by putting my fingers inside. Okay, so now we're going to start to go in. So we're going to put the coil inside to go in like that. See, it's as easy as that. And I'm going to do one more all the way around, and then we're going to close it. We're going to clean it and close it all the way around like that. But before we do that, we are going to put the face on because it's easier to squish the face when you can stick your finger inside still. If you want to, you can let it set up and then you can put the face on. But since I'm not going to have time to let it set up with you being with me, I'm going to go ahead and put it on. Now you got to be careful because sometimes I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. And I will put the face on this side, which is on the back. And then you have to take it off and redo it. So we're going to make sure that we turn it around and put the face on this side. Okay, now, so if you see a little bird here, they have this really sweet heart-shaped face. And on this one, you can see he's a little indented, so his face sticks out a little bit. So we're going to create that little heart shape right now. And I'm actually going to have to add, you can see that little place right there. I'm going to add a piece of clay there. Just put it on, smooth it down. And we're going to create that heart shape. So I'm just going to take my knife-like rib and I'm going to press in there. Okay? Then I'm going to do that on the other side. Press in. And that creates a little heart shape right there. And then I'm just going to press in a heart shape all the way around. So the point comes down at the bottom. Oh, I'm doing this on the wrong side. Hold on. It's supposed to be over here. So let me just clean that up real quick. I'm just smoothing it out. And like I said, you know, I'll really fix this thing when I'm totally done. So it looks a little rough right now, but it'll look better later. Okay, so because I did it on the wrong side, I'm going to add a little extra clay here. See how low that is right there? I'm going to add a little clay there because that needs to be the top of the head where I'm going to make the heart shape face. So I'm going to smooth that piece of clay in. And we're going to, again, attempt the heart shape. So we're going to take our little tool, make an indentation here. And we're going to make an indentation here, like that. And that's the top of the heart. And then all the way around, we're going to make an indentation. And inside, I'm pushing out the clay. So it becomes like elevated off of the face. Good. Now, there's the heart. It's a little bigger on one side, so I'm going to take a little bit there And we're gonna make this pop out just a little more here. So I'm just kind of fudging it around. You'll know when you're doing it how you want it to be. And there we go. So now he's got, of course, 2 eyes and a nose. So these are one of the only owls that have the darker eyes. So they look black. I'm sure they're probably a dark, dark brown. So I'm taking 2 little balls that I just rolled around in my fingers. And I'm just going to flatten them. And that's his eyes. So I'm going to stick one here and stick one here. Now, they look too big. So I'm going to take them off. And I'm going to take one of the eyes and I'm going to half it. And I'm going to roll it around and make 2 little balls. And then I'm going to squish them and see how they look. They look better. So I'm really going to push them on here now. And like I said, the clay's wet enough that I don't need to score and slip those guys. So now I'm going to make his nose or his beak. And I'm just going to take a ball of clay. And I'm just going to roll it on one end. So it makes a beak. And it makes a little triangle like that. And then I'm going to flatten it a little bit on one side, the back side. Because if you look, the beak comes out here. It goes out from the bird. And when you look at your Google image, you'll see how rounded that big beak is that they chew. I'm not even going to say it. It helps them eat their prey. So I'm going to stick this right there. And there he is. And so I'm going to just take this back off, and I am going to score this one a little bit. And I am going to add just a tiny bit of water. Tiny bit. And I'm just going to press him in like that. There's your bird. Yay! Okay, now we just need to close him up. And I know y'all are probably like, oh, that's going to be hard. It's really not. Really not. So I'm just going to take a little piece of clay. Here's your little coil. And we're just going to go around one more time. Laying it on the inside, going in like that. And we're going to take, now this is where we can't get our fingers in there anymore, so you're going to have to be really, really careful. So we're going to take our tool and just pull the clay down the top of the bird's head all the way around. And so if you look, it kind of sticks up. See how it sticks up at the top? Now I'm just going to start mashing this down. I'm going to start rounding my tool over the bird's head so it smashes the top of the coil into the shape that I want for his head. See, and I've almost closed him up just doing that. So now I'm going to take just a little piece and I'm going to flatten it out. So it's just a little piece of clay, and I'm just going to put that right over there like that. I'm just going to tap it down. Okay? And then you just pull the clay down. And that's it. It really isn't hard to close up a coil built piece. And there's your bird. And so what I'll do now is I'm going to clean this bird up. For those of you who want to get started, just turn the video off. You can watch the end of it later. Go get some work done. But I'm just going to go ahead and continue to clean and talk so that y'all can see how I finish this little guy. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is clean up these wings, okay? And I'm just going to take the tip of this and I'm just going to pull it through the lines, pulling the clay out. And I just wipe my tool off after each pull. I'm just pulling that clay out, and then down, and then down. Okay, and then I'm just going to start gently pushing this clay together, trying to keep the lines separate. So I'm just really cleaning up with the tip of my finger these little lines. And you can probably find a tool to do that if your fingers are too big, but I like to use my finger better. You can even use your pinky. And I'm just pressing down on those lines, trying to get them nice and clean. And also smooth, because you can really cut yourself on clay. And you want it, I mean, if you're going to sell your work, you don't want to cut your customer if they buy this nice little owl and then there's a sharp piece and then it ends up cutting their finger, they won't like that too much. So you want to make sure they're nice and smooth. And I'm going to push these little ends together here and make this nice and clean. And I'm going to do the other side. So again, pulling, and I'm actually wiping the tool after each pull. Okay. And then I'm just going to, again, go with my finger all the way around. And I'll just stick your fingernail in there sometimes. Okay, there we go. So that's a little clean. Now I'm just going to go around and look. Now I've smashed his talons right here, so I'm going to clean those back up. Because as you're working on sculpture, you tend to manhandle it, and then you'll kind of take away some of the detail that you've already put in there. His tail needs a little work still, so I'm going to start just kind of cleaning up the tail. And reshaping. I do a lot of reshaping at the end. It allows me to work really fast because I'm not fussing. And then I can fuss at the end. So I'm going to take my tool and smooth this tail out because it's a little bumpy. So I'm just smoothing him. And I'm going to do that all the way around. I'm just going to start to smooth his body. And then I'm going to smooth upwards onto the head. Taking section at a time. And I'm just going to smooth this over here. If you're worried about his neck, you can just hold on to his head as you're smoothing. And then I'm going to come over here and get some of these and work on the wing here a little bit. Like that. Perfect. And then if he starts to move around on you, just hold on to him. That's my dog Bugsy. I'm sorry. He's probably barking at a squirrel. He loves a squirrel. And sometimes I have to block the camera. I'm going to have to figure out a better angle for the camera while I'm working. Okay. And that's about all the fussing I'm going to do at this moment. This is the time where I like to stop and check and make sure I have not created a wobble in my bird. So I'm just going to pull on him and make sure he's not wobbling, and he's not. And I'm going to go ahead and check again and see if I've pushed him in any way where he's going to touch this board when he's hanging. And he's good to go. There's a nice space between that. So that's good. That makes me feel good. And so I'm going to let him set up, and then I will probably take a sponge to him to get him even smoother, and then I will paint him with slip and carve him. So I think that's it for today. So thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the class. If you have any questions, you can always email me or text me. My email is leannepizio@gmail.com, and that's leannepizio@gmail.com. And my phone number is 336-202-6493. All right, thanks for coming, guys. I hope you have a great day.